Hi, my name is Katie DiMarino, and I'm here to talk about the various copyright infringement laws and technology breaches of copyright that were mentioned. First of all, I did watch the video about the Ohio University students, and I thought it was interesting, yet not all that surprising, that so many students didn't realize the seriousness of their offense. But it did seem like some seemed to understand, yet they still plan to use the services again, which that is what I found kind of alarming. If they were aware, that they had these large fines, etc., and they were still willing to breach the copyright again, either A, they didn't learn their lesson, or B, they really are correct and there's something fundamentally wrong with the law. So I thought that was really interesting. There were very diverse opinions presented on that. A culture gap between the artists and the music users were mentioned, that gray area, and it seems like this is where all of these issues do come from, because it seems like many studies were very inconclusive as to what the correct answer was. I thought it was interesting in the Oberholzer, Gee, and Stump article that file sharing didn't have statistical effects on purchases of the average album. They did suggest that other reasons for the decline in music sales were apparent. For example, they suggested maybe that there's a change in how media is accessed, and that was one of the reasons. And it was interesting in some of these articles that dated back to the late 90s and the early thousands to see how things have changed since then. I personally was unaware that there are classroom guidelines for copyright, which that's something that makes total sense. It was mentioned in the Gasaway article, but you would think that if that was the case, it's a little bit surprising that as an educator, it's not something that we really hear about, at least when you graduate from your undergrad and you become an educator, you're in the school system. The copyright laws aren't really an issue of concern in the school district. I mean, like I said, I was completely unaware that these guidelines did exist. And they mentioned in the Gasaway article also the difference between distributing a copy per student and posting to the webpage. Very interesting issue there. I know that for most colleges, such as this college course, we do have password protected access, which is very different than at least in many of the K through 12 public schools. I even know within my own school, within my own district, there are people too that find access to paid resources and basically steal the user information for those districts. I teach language arts, and I've heard of people doing that even for the language arts based resources. So that was kind of interesting to me. In my opinion, that's wrong. In my opinion, you shouldn't be able to do something like that for a paid service. But that also brings up the issue of whether or not a service provider should be liable for use or the subscriber themselves. There are lots of legislations dealing with this, and I'm not really sure what my opinion is on that. I almost feel like it should be the subscriber held accountable rather than the service provider, because I would think when you sign up to use the service that you are agreeing to their terms and conditions, which hopefully would include, not violating those types of legislations. I did not realize how hazy the issue of obscenity was. This issue really isn't defined, and I didn't realize that the guidelines were so flexible, I guess, when it comes to that. Another thing that surprised me was with the privacy issue. I've always kind of been naive in that the privacy issue has never particularly concerned me, but I was particularly surprised when they mentioned also in the Gasaway article the extent of the information that is able to be uncovered simply by your daily internet uses on the web. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just it was eye-opening, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. So overall, I think many of these issues are issues that we don't deal with on a daily basis anymore. We don't discuss anymore. And as far as these issues within the schools go, I think they definitely need to be brought to light more so, because if we as teachers aren't very cognizant of what's going on, there's no way that our students then would be able to be aware of such issues in the classroom as well. So I definitely think it needs revisited on the professional level, as well as teachers sharing with students.